A ve studiu už teď vítám Claire Costello, národní ředitelku soukromých nadací Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. Claire Costello, welcome.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Claire, you advise money managers on philanthropic services. Why should they be interested?
Well, we're seeing increasingly a new wave of philanthropy coming into the Czech Republic, and we've seen it certainly spreading around the world, largely driven by the largest intergenerational transfer of wealth that's coming through. In the past, people used to structure their wealth and they would plan for their retirement, perhaps for the education of their children, and there tended to be some money left in which they would consider whether or not to give it to philanthropy. What we're seeing now is that people are considering philanthropy on the front end. People are wondering how much is too much to give to their children, and how they ought to think about maybe putting their money to its highest and best use and what that means for any individual client. So it's very important, therefore, that private bankers who deal with high net worth individuals and even what we call loosely the mass affluent become skilled in understanding the importance of philanthropy to clients and how they can best execute on their philanthropic ambitions.
Your department acts as a trustee in many foundations. How does that work specifically?
We are trustee or co-trustee for over 2,000 private family foundations who appointed us to their board. Some of them may be deceased, but we are the remaining corporate trustee. And what that means is that we have discretion over those funds to distribute them in the honor of and according to the wishes of the original donors. And often that mission is stated in the founding papers, that they would like to give to arts and culture or perhaps to benefit the environment. And we would then make grants on their behalf in keeping, again, with their preferences and their desires.
Couldn't it be sometimes difficult to actually figure out what those wishes are specifically?
It can be, but we try when we're appointed trustee, of course, to understand exactly what it was that the donor had intended when they set up their foundation. And of course, we take it upon ourselves quite seriously as fiduciary of those foundations to make sure that the monies that we are granting out on their behalf go to legitimate charities that do good work and that we are familiar with.
What do you think are the key elements of those professional services?
We will serve as the virtual back office. That is to say that we'll receive applications for grants on behalf of the clients. We will also help them with site visits and mission formation, helping them to figure out what it is that they actually care about and how best to deploy their dollars, their philanthropic dollars, to get the most philanthropic bang for their buck, if you will. And we have a whole menu of services, and the idea is that we will do any and all of what the client wants so that we can free the client up to do those things that bring them the most reward.
I'd like to talk about the World Giving Index. It's supposed to reflect the charitable behaviors in different countries.
Yes.
Now, what is it good for?
Well, Charities Aid Foundation undertook to do the World Giving Index, which has just come out in the past month or so, and they measured the giving tendencies in 153 countries that comprise 95% of the world's population. The Czech Republic actually came in at number 81. With an average score of 29%.
So that's not very good, or is it?
I think it is good for one very good reason. In that of the three parameters that they measured, giving money, giving of your time, or helping a stranger, the Czech Republic scored highest on giving to a stranger. And to me, that's most important because it says to me that societally, your impulse to give, your generous spirit is well intact. You then layer the practice of philanthropy and the practice of volunteering on top of that. But it's easier to do that if you have that core fundamental value of wanting to help another person.
How far do you think that the Czech Republic is from the sort of developed culture of philanthropy that we can see in other countries, such as the United States, where you have decades and perhaps centuries of experience?
Well, certainly the United States has a deeply embedded history of philanthropy that runs through the fabric of our society. So that is a comparison that may not be fair to other countries, quite frankly, because it's just in our DNA. That said, some of the strongest innovations in the philanthropic sector are coming from outside the United States today. So we can see not only from the Ministry of Finance numbers here in the Czech Republic that in the past 20 years, giving by individuals has doubled and giving by corporations has tripled. So certainly the momentum is very much in favor of a growing philanthropic sector. And I think if you layer on top of that the anecdotes that we're hearing about more and more people, young entrepreneurs as well as older people who are leaving provisions in their will saying, that they really want to give back and they'd like to figure out how best to do that.
Claire, thank you.
You're most welcome.